The last night. I always thought that important moments in life sound loud. That they crack the sky in half like in the movies. With thunder. With stormy winds. With drama. But when she said I love you, everything was too quiet. The silence in the room was so thick I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. It ticked. And it was the only real thing around at that moment. Not her voice. Not her eyes. Just the old clock. The one I couldn't even remember hanging up. I smiled. I reached out to touch her cheek. It was warm. Slightly damp from tension. Her lips trembled. I love you, she repeated. As if afraid I hadn't heard. And you know what? I didn't have time to say anything back. I didn't have time to do anything right. Not to lift her up in my arms. Not to promise I'd be there forever. I just felt something invisible and cold standing between us. She stepped back. One step. Then another. And within a second, I heard the door slam shut. Just a dull sound. No yelling. No crying. No accusations. She simply left. I stood there. Frozen. My hand awkwardly outstretched. Reaching for something that was no longer there. And that was the first time I realized. Silence can hurt too. Sometimes even more than words. I didn't run after her. Not because I didn't want to. Because my legs had turned to stone. I stood there like an idiot. Waiting. For what? For her to come back? For it to be a mistake? For her to laugh? Say she got scared. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. Then a whole lifetime. I don't remember how long I stood by that door. I only remember how my fingers went numb. Still holding her favorite mug. The one with the chipped rim and the silly words, "The best day starts with coffee." Yeah. Right. The best day. And coffee. Absolutely. Standing there, I realized. She was gone for good. And the worst part. I had no idea why. The night when someone you love disappears smells strange. A mix of cigarette smoke drifting through the open window. Spring dust trapped in the floorboards. And her perfume. Still hanging in the air like a memory of a touch. I sat down on the floor by the door. Just sat there. Like a little boy who doesn't know what to do when his mother leaves the room. I closed my eyes. It felt like if I sat there long enough, time would roll back. That I'd hear her footsteps again. Her voice. Her confession. I love you. And this time, I would answer right away. Without pausing. Without doubting. Without stupid shock. I would grab her hands and tell her. It terrifies me to live without her. But reality doesn't work like that. The first seconds of loss always smell like hope. And then, they rot into despair. I hugged myself tightly. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself cry. I didn't know it back then. That her leaving had started long before that night. Long before the words "I love you." And I was the last one to notice it. The empty space after her. You know what the morning looks like after someone leaves you. It looks like half-finished tea on the table. An empty bed where the pillow still remembers her head. A phone that stays silent as if it's hurting too. I woke up at 7:12. Not because the alarm went off. I forgot to set it. The silence in the apartment was so heavy you couldn't breathe through it. The silence she left behind. At first, I pretended everything was fine. Just another morning. Just a regular day. I'd walk into the kitchen. And she'd be there. Messy hair. wearing one of my shirts that hung down to her knees, fighting the coffee machine, mumbling for 5 more minutes of silence. But in the kitchen, there was only emptiness. And that stupid mug sitting on the table. I sat there, in the middle of it all, and tried to remember when was the last time I felt this lost. And the truth is, I remembered being 6 years old. Small blue diamond flashback. Mom had left. Not forever. Probably just to the neighbors or to the store. But I thought it was forever. I sat on the hallway floor in my little pajamas covered with cartoon cars, crying my eyes out. Scared she would never come back. Funny, right? Yeah. But here's the ugly truth. That kind of fear doesn't leave you as you grow up. We build homes. We build careers. We build relationships. But inside, there's still a 6-year-old kid terrified someone will just vanish without a word. That morning, I realized. Growing up doesn't mean you stop being afraid. It just means you learn how to make yourself coffee with one hand, while stitching your heart back together with the other. And pretending everything's fine. I wandered around the apartment like a ghost. I went to the bathroom, her toothbrush was still there. Opened the closet, her clothes still hung neatly. Her sneakers by the door. Her scarf on the hook. A note on the fridge saying, "Buy milk." She was gone. But everything still smelled like her. As if she had simply evaporated, leaving behind only traces. Whispers. No explanations. No goodbye. After 3 hours of wandering around like a fool, I made a stupid mistake. I texted her. "Where are you?" Just 2 words. Short. Desperate. Pathetic. The message went through. Status, delivered. But there was no reply. And you know what? That was worse than if she had answered cruelly. Worse than if she had accused me of anything. Silence is the final word of someone who leaves for good. Silence says, "You're not even worth an explanation." I collapsed onto the couch, staring up at the cracked ceiling. 1 crack. 2. 3. Somewhere around the 6th crack, I realized my entire world was now made of cracks. Nothing solid left. I thought that was the worst of it. But the real nightmare began the next day, when I realized that the last few months hadn't been love. They were just a farewell tour. The first crack. They say the cracks show up long before the walls come crashing down. You just don't notice them. Or you pretend not to. Especially when you really, desperately, want to believe your house is eternal. That your love is eternal. That your woman is forever. Plot twist, if you're a lovesick idiot, you only notice the crack after the ceiling falls on your head. I kept thinking about when it all really started falling apart. And eventually, I remembered. That evening, when she sat by the window and said quietly, "Have you ever thought about how we can just disappear overnight?" I laughed, of course. Disappear? Come on. You sit at home. Drink your tea. Plan vacations. And poof, you're gone? Seriously? I even joked. If we disappear, it better be together. With screaming, drama, and hats flying everywhere. Thank God no one recorded that brilliant speech. I would have punched myself. She smiled in response. A strange smile. Thin. Fading. As if she already knew something I didn't. Then there were other little things. Like how she started forgetting our small traditions. Skipping Friday movie nights. Hiding her phone when someone called. And you know what the worst part is? I noticed it all. Every tiny thing. But what did I do? Right. I told myself. It's just work stress. It's spring. Mercury's in retrograde. If we're being honest, I told myself. Don't ruin it, man. You finally have a normal relationship. Don't screw it up with paranoia. Oh. What a romantic fool I was. If there was a world championship for self-delusion, I would have taken the gold medal. And thanked the judges without noticing my trophy was already cracked in half. She kept looking away more and more often. While talking to me. While walking beside me. Even when I was holding her hand. And you know how much it hurts. To hold someone's hand. And feel them slipping away inside? It's like trying to hold water in your palms. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. And then she started saying strange things. Stuff like, have you ever dreamed of starting over from scratch? Sometimes love isn't a rescue. It's a trap. There are people you just can't love the right way. And what did I do? I nodded. I nodded like a complete idiot, thinking I was having some deep philosophical conversation. When in reality, I was attending my own emotional funeral. Only later I realized. She had been saying goodbye all along. Softly. Gently. Without drama. She was leaving. Every second. Every day. And I was the last fool standing on the stage. Who didn't realize the actress had already left backstage. I thought I still had time. I thought love was enough. But she had been slipping through my fingers long before I ever noticed. Searching and guessing. On the fourth day after she disappeared, I realized something simple. I shouldn't be looking for her. I should be looking for the truth I didn't want to see. The truth she had been leaving me. Like tiny breadcrumbs along the way. And like the genius I am, I missed every single one of them. I started with the obvious. Her phone, silent. Social media, empty. Even her beloved Instagram, where she used to post pictures of tiny joys, new books, coffee cups, sunsets, went completely dark. No stories. No posts. It was like she had been erased. I texted her friends. Some replied vaguely. We haven't seen her in a while. She said she needed some time alone. Others didn't reply at all. And the more I tried to find her, the clearer it became. She had planned everything. She had been leaving carefully. Quietly. Wiping away her tracks. I went to all the places where we had been happy. Our park. The bench by the lake where we'd sat wrapped in one scarf on cold nights. That shabby little cafe with the squeaky door where they once served us the worst latte ever, and we stayed anyway. I searched for her face among strangers. Every time I caught a glimpse of someone with her hair color, my heart skipped a beat. But it was never her. Only ghosts. That evening, when I had finally lost all hope, it happened. The doorbell rang. 2 short rings. Exactly like she used to do when she came over without warning. Standing on the doorstep with a bag of Chinese food and the brightest high in the world. I rushed to the door. But there was no one there. Just the dark hallway. And a thin envelope lying on the doormat. No name. No return address. Inside, a small card. One sentence, written in shaky handwriting. Don't look for me. You already know. And you know what was the scariest part? Not that she left. Not that I was alone. The scariest thing was, I really was starting to understand. I remembered her sudden disappearances for half a day. When she said she was busy with work. Her sad eyes after phone calls she brushed off with, just problems with a friend. I remembered that one night she sat by the window, smoking in silence, even though she had quit a year ago. Standing there with that card in my hand, I realized she hadn't been running from me. She had been running from something inside herself. From some pain I never even knew existed. And the worst part, I couldn't save her. Even if I tried with everything I had. She had already made her choice. Long ago. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I closed the door, slid down to the floor, and for the first time since she left, I didn't cry. Because sometimes, pain cuts so deep there's simply no space left for tears. I thought it was over. But the next morning, I found the draft of a letter she had hidden inside the last book she was reading. The mirror of the past. The next morning after the card arrived, I found her letter. The old book on the nightstand had been sitting there for months. I had held it hundreds of times, but never thought to look between the pages. And there it was. A folded piece of paper, tucked deep inside. I recognized her handwriting instantly. Slightly messy. The letters leaning into each other. As if she was always in a hurry. Like she was afraid she wouldn't have enough time to say everything she needed to. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. I'm sorry that loving me always meant losing a little piece of yourself. I read those lines over and over again. Like a spell that didn't work. Each word tearing something inside me. And for the first time, I allowed myself to remember. Not her. Me. Small blue diamond flashback 1, 16 years ago. I was standing on the train platform. A bouquet of roses in my hands. Spent my last money on them. The train was leaving. And my first love was waving from the window. I'll be back, she shouted through the glass. She never came back. Never even called. That day I told myself, I'll never let anyone be my everything again. Yeah. What a sweet, pathetic little lie. Small blue diamond flashback 2, 9 years ago. A tiny kitchen in a new apartment. I'm sitting at the table arguing with a woman I thought I would marry. Stupid argument. About dishes. Groceries. Whose turn it was to take out the trash. She stood up. Grabbed her bag. Left. And never came back. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and thought. Good. Easier this way. But I actually spent 3 nights on the kitchen floor. Listening to the leaking tap. And now, here I was again. Another person. Gone. Again. I sat there. Holding her letter. Feeling the weight of my past crashing down on me. Not because she left. But because I realized. I had been carrying my own cracks all along. And every loss. Every goodbye. Found those cracks. And widened them. Loving someone isn't about sunset walks or shared playlists. Loving someone is staying in place. Even when it rips you apart inside. And now I could finally see it clearly. She felt my cracks too. She felt my fears. My old wounds. And maybe that's why she left. To avoid becoming another broken shard in my collection. I looked around the apartment. At the scattered things. At the empty bed. At the old sweater she left hanging on the chair. And I realized. I didn't just lose her. I lost the version of myself that believed you could love without fear. That you could be vulnerable. And survive it. Small blue diamond flashback 3, a few months ago. We're sitting on a windowsill. Sharing a cup of tea. I kiss the top of her head. She laughs and says, "You're the safest home I've ever known." And now, that home was empty. I placed her letter back into the book. closed it gently, as if slowing down could make the pain hurt less, and said out loud, "No one is obligated to stay, even if you love them with everything you have." I thought I understood everything now, but a random meeting the next day tore my understanding apart again. A chance encounter. Sometimes life throws people at you at the weirdest possible moment. Not when you're ready. Not when you're put together. Not when you're strong. But when you're sitting in a depressing little cafe, sipping terrible coffee that tastes like regret, looking like you just lost a fight to your own shadow. That's when I saw her friend, Anya. We weren't exactly close. Met a few times at birthday parties. Exchanged polite greetings. That's all. But that day, she walked into the cafe, saw me, and froze. Like she had seen a ghost. She approached hesitantly. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I answered, staring deep into my cup. The silence between us was thick, heavy. The cafe smelled like burnt coffee and wet clothes. She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something strange. Pity. And fear. "You don't know anything, do you?" she asked quietly. I raised my head. "No," I said. "I don't know anything." And at that moment, I realized how true that was. I really didn't know anything. Not about her. Not about myself next to her. Anya sat down across from me. She hesitated. Then she said, carefully, she couldn't stay. She just couldn't. It wasn't about you. You need to understand that. I felt something ugly wake up inside me. Desperate curiosity. "Then tell me," I said. "Tell me something. Anything." Anya bit her lip. Shook her head. "It's not my story to tell," she whispered. And here's the part where I should say I stayed calm. Mature. Collected. But no. I clenched my fists under the table, hating her with every broken piece of me. Because I wanted to know. Because I thought knowing would make it hurt less. Anya stood up. Gently placed her hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes people leave because they have no choice," she said. "And it's not about you. Or about them. It's about a kind of pain you can't heal. Even if you love them with all you have." Then she left. I stayed sitting there, staring at my cold coffee. Outside the window it was drizzling. People hurried by, arguing over takeaway orders, dodging puddles, carrying on with their lives. And I sat there, wondering, what kind of pain could be so big that leaving became easier than staying? And what kind of pain lives inside me that I still can't let go? I thought that was the end of it. But that night, I went back home. And for the first time, I dared to open all our old chats. What I found there changed everything. The letter that never reached me. That evening, I sat in my apartment, still breathing in the air that smelled like her. Silence had turned into something alive. Breathing. Whispering. And I knew, if I wanted to understand anything, I had to look where I had been too afraid to look. Into our old conversations. I found my old phone. The one where she had sent her first silly messages. Memes. Random thoughts in the middle of the night. Drunken confessions of love. My hands shook when I opened our chat. Because deep down, I knew I would find everything I had missed staring me right in the face. The first message I stumbled upon was from a year ago. Sometimes I feel too broken for happiness. You won't leave if you see all of it, will you? I answered something stupid. Don't overthink. I'm here. Short. Automatic. Without realizing, she had just placed a piece of her soul in my hands. And I dropped it. A few months later. Promise me that if I ever disappear, you won't look for me in strangers' faces. I remember laughing when I read that. Sent her a panda sticker. Wrote, "Where would you run from me?" Yeah. Cute. And now, guess who's the panda stuck crying over a broken heart? Another one. Simple. Have you ever loved someone so much that it hurt just to breathe? I never even answered that one. Maybe I didn't see it. Maybe I didn't want to. I scrolled and scrolled. And each line cut deeper. Jokes. Plans. Silly arguments about where to order pizza from. And woven between them were tiny screams for help that I had ignored. And then I found it. A draft. An unsent message. Buried deep in our chat history. Words she had written, but never sent. Asterisk, I'm not leaving because I don't love you. I'm leaving because I love you too much. Love shouldn't feel this heavy. And I don't know how to love without breaking things. I bring pain. I destroy everything I touch. I can't destroy you too, asterisk. I sat there. In the half-light. Holding that invisible wound in my hands. And for the first time, I didn't try to fix it. I just let it hurt. Because sometimes, it's not about being abandoned. It's about realizing you weren't really present. You were there physically. But you didn't see. You didn't hear. You didn't answer when it mattered the most. Small blue diamond flashback. We're sitting in the kitchen at midnight. She's laughing at some stupid story about kindergarten. I look at her. And I think. She's smiling. Everything's fine. But sometimes, a smile is just a shield. I closed the phone slowly. Carefully. As if it could crack even more. And I understood. She didn't leave to hurt me. She left because she thought she had no other way. I thought now I finally knew everything. But one random phrase hidden deep in our chat was about to tear my heart open all over again. A new perspective. That night, I sat by the window for a long time. The streetlights were bleeding into the wet pavement. People were rushing somewhere. Living their lives. And I was learning to let go. Not her. Myself. We are taught to believe that love is a battle. That you have to cling to it. Hold it. Fight for it until your last breath. That losing someone means you failed. But sitting there by the window, I realized. Sometimes, love is the ability to let someone go. Even when every cell in your body is screaming stay. I opened our old chat again. Not to look for clues. Not to find mistakes. But to say goodbye. I scrolled through everything. Our stupid jokes. Our messy dreams. Our tiny, beautiful moments. And I smiled. Honestly. Not bitterly. Not brokenly. But softly. Because for the first time, I could see it clearly. She was real. With all her brokenness. With all her fear. With all her fragility. And so was I. With all my clumsy love. With all my fears. With all my desperate need to hold on. Small blue diamond flashback. We're sitting on a park bench. She's eating ice cream. telling me how she dreamed of becoming an astronomer as a kid. I wanted to find new stars, she says, laughing, drawing constellations with her finger in the air. Back then I thought, what a silly dream. Now I understand. Finding new stars was her way of surviving. I looked up at the sky through the rain. It was heavy, gray, cold. But somewhere up there, behind all the clouds, the stars were still there. They hadn't disappeared. They were just hidden. Like her. Like me. We were just living in different skies now. Different. But still real. Letting someone go doesn't mean erasing them. It means making a place for them inside you. A warm place. Without pain. I typed a message. One last message. Knowing full well she might never read it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love. Thank you for leaving. Without it, I would have never found myself. And I sent it. Just to let it leave my chest. That night, I finally fell asleep peacefully. No expectations. No hopes. No anger. Just a quiet sense that everything was happening as it should. Small blue diamond, beautiful metaphor. Love isn't chains. Or walls. Or war. Love is the sky. Sometimes it's clear and blue. Sometimes it's torn apart by thunder and rain. But it's always there. Even when you can't see it. I thought this was the end of the story. But one letter that arrived months later would change everything again. A song without end. Months passed. I learned to live without her. Or rather, I learned to live with her absence. The way you live with a scar you only notice when it rains. I stopped waiting for messages. I stopped listening for footsteps in the hallway. I stopped searching for her face among strangers. I just lived. And then, when I finally let go, the letter arrived. A real one. Old-fashioned. A little crumpled from the journey. No return address. No name. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I'm sorry I couldn't explain back then. I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. I was afraid that if I stayed, I would destroy everything I loved. You were my home. You were the light I didn't believe I deserved. Sometimes leaving is the only way to keep someone whole. I hope your life is full. I hope your love finds someone who won't be afraid of its brightness. I'll always remember your laughter. Thank you for everything. Live. I read the letter 3 times. And each time, something shifted inside me. It wasn't pain. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't even sadness. It was gratitude. Pure and deep. We like to think love should last forever. That if a story ends, it means it was worthless. But maybe the most important thing we can give each other is not eternity, but a piece of life that was real, even if it was short. The laughter, the pain, the fear, the hope, the love, as it was. Small blue diamond, final scene. I stood on an empty morning street. The sun was barely breaking through the heavy sky. The world smelled like wet asphalt. Fresh bread from a nearby bakery. And something else. Something alive. I took a deep breath. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled. Not for anyone. Not for anything. Just for myself. Some stories don't have a proper ending. Some songs keep playing, even after the music fades. And in that silence, I heard her laughter. Soft. Slipping away. Like the breeze moving through the leaves. And I understood. It would always stay with me. Not as pain. Not as loss. But as part of who I am. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. More stories are on the way just for you.